Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mind That Matters. It's a lovely Sunday evening. Now, as you know, I like to give weather commentaries, and autumn has arrived, but I think autumn will be very short lived because winter is becoming particularly insistent about wanting to be centre stage. There you go. The forecast is grey, due to be greyer and greyer, and probably quite wet. There you go. Now, enough of that. On to more important matters, and a pressing matter indeed. You lot have not been subscribing. The goblins in my head are very unhappy about the situation. Retribution may be in the air. So you know what to do to avoid this happening to you. Subscribe. Now, the subject at hand, and it is siblings. Most of you out there in YouTube land have them, whether you like them or not, whether you want to have them or not, you have them. And what do you do with them? What use are they? Are they useful? Are they an inconvenience? Are they something with which we must upput with? Now, I, for my part, in this, have 5 siblings. And I, like many of you, have spent a lot of time pondering upon my relationship with my siblings. And as I've gotten older, and perhaps gained in wisdom, well, a little bit anyway, I've realised that my relationship with them has changed dramatically over the years. Now, I'm sure there are also many of you out there who have siblings that are a little older, a little younger. You may find yourselves in a recomposed family or siblings that came as a bit of a surprise. You may have foster siblings. You may have step siblings. But they are all siblings. You bear a relationship with them. In many cases, our siblings who are blood relatives aren't very close to us. But those who are step siblings or foster siblings may become extremely close to us, and us to them. There are no hard and fast rules as to what constitutes a sibling, but the classic version are those that we have at hand and have had within the same nuclear family. The nuclear family is a good and it's a bad thing. We have siblings who are the product of our parents' dalliances throughout their marriage. And you have the pleasure of sharing your life with them. Now, how do we relate to our siblings? Very differently, I'd imagine. I've known families where people are fusional. They can't get enough of each other in terms of their relationship. They're very close. Others, it's your choice of weapon at dawn. You just don't get on. No, that can metamorphosize later in life to particularly close relationships if they haven't killed each other. Now, this was quite a popular pastime back when every land on this planet had a king or a queen or a royal family of some sort. It was quite common to kill your brethren, mainly, as women didn't tend to ascend to anything back then. So, this happens in a lot of families. Brothers and sisters and brothers and brothers and sisters and sisters and sisters and brothers do not get on. There are those who do. They're in the extremes. And then there are others where, you know, you bear each other until you can get out the gap when you're whatever age. Now, it is a difficult relationship. Imagine being an only child. Who do you not get on with? Who do you dislike? And it's an extreme difficulty for an only child. You end up loathing yourself. You end up being uncaring, being selfish. It's tough. You need to have those other people in your life to spread your feelings instead of keeping it all for yourself. Now you might say, look, Kelly, you're rambling. I'm not. In my own case, I had, I would say, the full gamut, whichever way you choose to pronounce it, of siblings. Uh, Due to my father having been married twice. I began life in lovely South London. A year younger than me was my sister. And we went from London to the wilds of County Kerry. Well, not the wilds. The Wild Place is the name of the place in which I grew up, a place I love, called Feenet. In the Irish language, called Onianot or Unfianot. Opinions vary as to the translation. It's going to be called a wild place, which it's not. Now, a year after we were taken back to Ireland, my sister died, which was tragic. It was terrible. It was terrible for everybody. 6 years after that, my father remarried. Hang on, get this right. 6, 7, 6. Yeah, 6 years afterwards. He remarried. And then the following year came my sister. Now, you could say technically half sister. Yeah, but I looked at her and she had legs and arms and head and body and everything. So half. She's my sister. 2 years after that came my brother, half brother. But I looked at him as well, and he certainly had 2 arms, 2 legs, head. So then he, my stepmother being unwell, it was decided that for the good of, I don't know for whose good it was, he ended up being raised by his uncle Nat. And he's had an exceptional life. He has 3 sisters. He is now a grandfather, 3 children of his own, and very happy. So life can work out for people in many ways. At the time, it wasn't, and yeah, I'd say there was a lot of resentment. Here was one of my siblings gone. Now, my sister was and still is 10 years younger than me, and my brother 12 years younger than me. But because I've lived away from Ireland for most of my adult life, my relationship with them has changed considerably over the years to the point now where, through my decision, I don't have a lot of contact with them. But that doesn't mean to say I don't love them. I love them very much. And that will never change. Whatever contact you do or do not have with somebody, that doesn't change the underlying emotion that you feel. I retained the same love for them that I did when I found out that both of them were coming into the world on the days they were born, respectively. I was over the moon. That may be a reflection of having lost a sibling at a very young age, which had a huge impact on me. Still does every day. But I've learned to put that into its own perspective. Now, what of my mother, you say? Now, having been brought up in a recomposed family, if you like, the children came afterwards. It was still a recomposed family. I had a stepmother um, who I loved. She unfortunately has passed away as well. This is not a litany of despair. Absolutely not a litany of happiness. And she had to figure out a lot of things. She had children herself. Where did I fit in? I didn't fit in for a long time. But in later years, she was a champion for me anyway. In a difficult family setting. Then, for many years, I thought, where's my mother in all of this? Where is she? What's she doing? And I had thought about finding her, and I didn't for a long time. And then finally, I thought, well, I'm ready. I was 41. I thought I'd better do something about this. So in 2008, I wrote to Sally Ann, Salvation Army, and February 2009, I received a letter. I received a letter. Don't speak in the present when you're speaking about the past. It's grammatically incorrect. This letter informed me that my mother had died in 2002 of a cancer. But also in that letter was a little grain of hope. Uh, she'd had a family, and I was given the details of her daughter. I'm thinking, holy God. And yeah, here was another sister who I'd been naturally blithely unaware of her presence until I read that letter. So I rang her. I thought, I want to meet this person. I did. Went to England a few days later. As soon as I'd gone to a friend's house and sat down, my phone rang. It was strange. And on the line was this other person saying, have you been trying to contact my sister? Going, hang on a second now. Are going to be threats here? And he said, well, I'm her brother. There we have another sibling. Now, I'd like to say that it's been happy ever after, and the roses have bloomed permanently ever since, but they haven't, and in general, they don't. Meeting people to whom you're related, long lost relatives, it rarely works out. It rarely becomes a fairy tale. Now, we've maintained contact. I've never met my sister, what I call my English sister, my English brother. I've met him a few times, and it's been quite cathartic, I think is the word. But we've never maintained contact on what would be considered a I would say a trusting way, not in a trusting way. It's been done every now and then. Now, you could say that it's my fault. I haven't insisted enough, and I don't want to. You don't want to force yourself on somebody when they may not be ready. It can take a long time. My sister, we've never met, but I'd like to think that one day we will. But it's just a matter of knocking on the door every now and then and finding out she's had her own struggles in life, as we all do. Things with which we must contend. That's everybody. My brother's had it in his own life. Now, Irish brother, like I say, he is Um, Newly a grandfather, quite recently. My sister, Irish sister, has two children. And funnily enough, her two boys are, I think it's a 12-year gap between them as well. Thereabouts, 10, 12 years, I can't remember exactly, 10 or 12 years. And in saying that, I've got two and two, one sister who's gone. And I don't idolize my sister who died, but I do think uh, had she lived, life would have been certainly very different. You're trying to reimagine a non-existent past. Then you would have had somebody with whom you're very close. And this brings me back to siblings. How would that have gone? Well, you may look at your own siblings who are living and think, well, would I like it to be any different? Is it better the way it is? I may not have spoken to somebody for a while. Maybe I don't want to speak to that person. Do I like them enough to talk to them? Or those with whom I'm close, are we really close, or are we doing it because we're related? These are always difficult questions to answer. Is our dynamic a real one? Which is why it's often easier to have good friends. And when I say good friends, I mean you will only have a couple in life throughout the course of your life. And they're probably closer than your family. Now, you can have family members with whom you're extremely close. But is that becoming incestuous? Are you doing it because they're family members? Are you sure that there are enough boundaries there? Do we place enough boundaries in our families? Do we place enough boundaries in our relationships with our siblings? How much do they need to know? How much should they know? How much emotion should be expressed? It's particularly difficult with siblings because it is, push me, pull me. I don't like you. Well, I don't like you either. I like you even less. It's very easy to be hurtful. With a friend, you're very aware of where the boundaries are. You know when you've overstepped the mark. With family, you don't. Certainly with your siblings, you don't. Now, I'm in that position in which many of you will find yourself. Now, I touched upon foster siblings earlier because there are long-term fosters. There are long-term fosters that turn into adoption, for example. But long-term fostering, often for people who are fostered, their foster siblings are so vitally important to them. This is a link that they wouldn't otherwise have had. And that has to be treated with the utmost respect by those involved in the relationship. It's not something you can cast off too easily because of the damage it might do. Then that has to be brought into your relationship with your blood siblings. It can do the same amount of damage, but we think, sure, it's only my brother, it's only my sister. And that makes me aware that when I don't stay in contact with my siblings, maybe I'm doing the same thing. Because I'm the eldest uh, by some distance in every respect. The English family, uh, 6 years and 8 years, and then it's 10 years and 12 years on the Irish side. So has that led to conflict? I often wonder. Is there, do they think he's aloof? I've often been had that accusation leveled at me. Yeah, that's part of my character. I'm happy with that. It allows you to keep a distance. But behind that, there is a huge amount of love. And I've told my siblings, not the English ones, because I haven't had the chance. My brother was still at the stage of discussing um, our mother. I get what I know about my mother from him. So after 14 years, it hasn't advanced a huge amount. It's advanced a certain amount. Now that may change. I hope it does. Irish side of the family, you know, you do what you can. It goes up and down depending on the day. Now, what I want to do is to create a better relationship. When I say that, and I think it's important in everybody's dealings with their siblings, you have to create a set of rules, maybe to make them tailor made. Sure, we deal with every person differently, but let's create that space. And in there, you put that bit of space between you and them. You go, well, the relationship fits in there. And I think it wouldn't be a bad way of doing it. Because each person you go, oh, hang on, I look in there, oh, yeah, that's how this is my frame of reference, for want of a better term. Think this is how I deal with this person. Because it has to be different each time. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense. But there's a conflict, an inherent conflict involved when we deal with siblings. Because it's always been there. You love them in the way I love my siblings. But there's a conflict. For me, it's, have I been a good enough brother? Have I insisted enough? Should I should I have treated them differently? Because of the age gap, I left Ireland when I was 19. So you're looking at a couple of very small people, uh, 9 and 7. Then when you come back on holiday, I tried to meet them. Tried to explain to them, this is what life was like. This is what my life was like. Maybe that was unfair. Those who are closer in age, it's different. It's a much livelier discussion. Doesn't mean to say it's any better or any worse. But when you're bouncing off each other the whole time, yeah, your relationship is far more active. It's far more vital. But do we love them any more, any less? I don't think so. I think they're important in our lives. Certainly, you might get a knock on the door one day saying, I need a kidney. That's probably when you find out who really loves you. I'm joking, of course. It could be a bit of your liver. Whatever way you look at it, our siblings, whether, let's face it, you're all born of the same relationship, or it's a reconstituted family, whether you're step siblings, half siblings, horrible terms, but it's a way of describing what we see. Your foster and foster siblings, you develop relationships with each other. They're often extremely strong. What we shouldn't do with them is ignore them. I'm guilty of that, sadly. Like I say, you can always hope to rekindle relationships on a new footing, create new rules, create that little orb of, of reference inside which you and that person fit most comfortably. And then do it with, if you have more than one sibling, you do it. You try to make it as comfortable as you can. By creating a new relationship, I don't think there's any way of continuing an old relationship that doesn't work. Even if it means in that new relationship, you will only speak to each other briefly throughout the course of a week, a month, a year, a decade. But as long as it's progressive, I think is the key. Relationship has to be progressive. It's impossible to keep falling back upon the old mores, the old ways of behaving, because then you're looking at each other in the past. That doesn't help anyone. And I think that's the point of this little ramble I've had through my own memories. I think your relationship, all relationships, in fact, have to be progressive, especially those with siblings. Because what it does, it helps you to evacuate any bad feelings that may exist. Now, this happens an awful lot, especially where mommy and daddy are concerned, because we take sides, whether we want to or not. You did this and you did that. You end up hating each other. You certainly end up having grudges that are unspoken. You don't speak about things. Whereas if you're progressive about things, you let go of the language. As soon as you've used it, get rid of it. You hang on to the good stuff. But in another person's mind, that good stuff may have been bad stuff for them because one person was being favored. Unless you talk about it, you're not going to advance. The most important part of a sibling relationship is keeping it fresh. You can't look at each other, as 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 year olds. You have to look at what's here now, what you're doing now, how you relate to each other now. Not back then. No, I'm saying that, and I'm discovering this with you. Yeah, I must make my own efforts. I have done over the years, but nowhere near enough. But I do it for me, not for anyone else. If the other person ends up being happy about it, well, that's a bonus. And everybody can be a little happier with things. Like I said in the previous talk last week, it's being okay about things. It's feeling okay. Being more okay. Okayer, if you like. I don't know if I want to be the okayest person in the world. I'll try. I'll try to drag a few other people along with me. So these are the solutions. I don't know if they're solutions, but it's certainly something to be tried. Doing nothing, you end up with nothing. There's no energy. You do nothing, there's potential. A little bit of physics. My knowledge of physics is how small an atom is. Somewhere lost in the middle of the atom is my knowledge of physics. It's one atom. It's tiny. But if you move on something, you create some energy. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'll try to do it, I shall do. I'll let you know how it goes. It may go very badly. But there are 4 people there, and I'd like to know more about them. I'm a granduncle. Not even by default. That is now a title I must bear. Now, if my child ever comes home and says, I'm going to do one better than that, we shall have discussions. It's not likely to happen anytime soon. I hope not. I do, but not just yet. Life, huh? Now, all of you out there in YouTube land, I've blathered on enough, and I'll leave you with this thought. Subscribe, please. Otherwise, the goblins will be round, and they can be very, very, very persuasive. There you go. Now, I'll leave you with thoughts of your siblings. See them, speak to them, see how you get on, create a new relationship. Now, I shall leave you, so be good, be well, be healthy. You're a god or a goddess, may your god or your goddess go with you. Speak to you all very soon. Enjoy your Sunday evening. Bye now.